Welcome back, sparkling, glowing, wonderful humans. This is Ignite Your Spark, and I am your host, Kim Duff Selby. And thank you for joining me once again. Each week, I bring you truly incredible guests who are out there in the world igniting sparks, bringing light into the lives of others. And that is my goal with this podcast. Not about me, about you and my guests, and how you can connect and how you can learn and how you can access your inner light, shine your light, and share your light because the world needs your light. May not always feel like you've got that light, but believe me, it is there. So thank you. And if you are enjoying these episodes, I really invite you to share them, comment, rate, because that is the way to get more light out into the universe so that people can find this podcast. It's all about the algorithm. I wish it weren't, but it is. So thank you. Today, my guest is Jennifer Spor. And Jennifer is I love this, the CEO and founder of her namesake company. And you know what? We're all the CEOs and founders of our lives.
Mhm.
And I really think we need to embrace that more, Jennifer, and welcome. You're so much more than that, but let me just go on to say that you're the host of the Path of the Awakened Heart podcast, which I love, and you all need to listen to that as well. She's a spiritual advisor, a channel, and an Akashic Records trauma-informed master consultant and teacher for high achieving conscious women leaders. And I know if you're out there and you think you're not a woman leader, you are. You're a woman, you're a human, and we all need this kind of wisdom. Thank you, Jennifer, for joining me.
Yes, thank you for the amazing, warm, sparkly welcome. I'm super excited to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You are, as I was saying prior to recording, I'm the original woo girl and you're like my ideal guest. You say the word Akashic Records, I say, I'm in. You say channel, I'm in. Spiritual, guide, all the things. I am so into it. So before we get into your origin story, because I always love a good origin story, I'm going to ask you, how do you ignite your spark?
I love that question. And you know what? The Cliff Notes version of the answer is I seek to do that in every moment of every day. It's really in mindfulness and being present to the frequency that I'm emitting, being conscious to that. I feel like our spark is an eternal flame that, just as with every other aspect of our being, right, requires unconditional love and nurturing and attention.
Wow, thank you for that. I love asking that question so much because the answers I get ignite my spark. Really beautiful. Thank you. Wow. All right, well, let's hear your origin story and how you got into the kind of work that you currently do.
Yeah, I love this question because first I want to start by saying, I feel like because we're always on this journey of constant change and evolution, that we have several origin stories. But to share really what was the initial catalyst to getting to where I got today, I'll share that origin story. So before I was doing the work that I'm doing today, I had a whole other life. I essentially, like so many people, right, had a career, checked off all the boxes of what traditional 3D society teaches us that it means to achieve success. So I had a really successful career in the retail industry. Started out, it's such a wonderful story, which I won't get into today, but I really started out in that industry as an associate at 19. And toward the end of my career, I was the youngest female corporate store operations director for a $12 billion company. So that in of itself is like a really cool story. But I reached the point that I was at this place in my career. I checked off all the boxes, and for me, even before I would say my initial kind of catalyzing awakening, I was always someone that, integrity has always been important to me. And I always had to, whatever I chose to pursue, I had to believe in what I was pursuing. So I loved my career for a really long time. And I reached a place where I eventually ran out of promotions, ran out of boxes to check off the list, right? I wasn't feeling like I was making a big difference anymore. And so that's really when I say the fog started to lift, because I started thinking about, wow, what's next? Because there was a time in my life that I didn't think anything else would be next because I was content, where I was. So through that journey, I realized that I really didn't know who I was anymore because my identity was tied up so much in my career. And for anyone who's worked in retail, familiar with that industry, it's easy to do because holidays, weekends, all the stuff, right? I was on all the time in my career. So I was realizing a lot about myself, right? I was essentially embarking on this journey to rediscovery. So knowing that, having that awareness, I chose not to take action really at that time. I did start spending a lot more time outside of my work, reigniting my spiritual gifts because I've always had gifts. I've always been sensitive. I suppressed those gifts a lot. They did, however, actually serve me really well in my corporate career because I'm an empath and I'm super tuned into people. So it served me really well, but I started spending more time on that. And it really wasn't until about another year or two after that realization that my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at the time I was living in New Jersey, she was living in Idaho. So I was flying back and forth to be with her and my family as much as I could, during that time. And there was this one defining moment that I remember, and I don't know if you've had these moments, but I'm sure some of the listeners have too. It's like something that is a memory. It's so clear in your mind that it's like it happened yesterday, and it still feels like it was yesterday. But there was this moment where it was just days before my mom passed. I was sitting next to her bedside, and my phone started blowing up with some kind of issue happening at my work at the time. And so I was faced with yet another moment where I was feeling like I was being forced to choose between being present to that or being present with my mom, who was days away from transitioning at that time. And that was the moment for me. My courage exceeded my fear. That was it. I made a decision in that moment. I was I have no idea what's coming after this, but my life has to change because I never want to feel like I have to choose again. I started taking my power back, and that was really the beginning of the end of that chapter of my life. And I didn't, fly back to New Jersey and quit my job the next day. What ended up happening is I did go back and have a conversation with my boss. And at the time, remote working wasn't really a culture. It wasn't really a thing back then. And so I was given a choice that if I wanted to live closer to my family, I had to step down from my career. And so I did. I chose to move out to Idaho. And much like a country song, I always joke about this. It's like I literally rented my house out in New Jersey at the time, packed up my car, and headed out west. I drove across the country by myself in like 4 days. And the rest is history.
Well, I love that you had the courage at that time. And you're right. So many people leave their huge jobs because they realize there's more. You had a pivotal moment, a decision you had to make. And I think a lot of people have had that with aging parents where you get to choose. And what came to me, it's interesting, which I've not thought about before, how different our lives would have been had virtual work been an option. Even in the 1980s, when I left a really great job in Manhattan because I my parents had passed away and I wanted to move. It was time to do something else for myself. And I moved to San Francisco. I loved my job so much. I could have done it virtually, but there was no such thing. So many people's lives, but that was not our path. Your path was not to do that virtually. Your path was obviously to cut that tie and move into the spiritual work that you are so gifted at. And I'm also curious how you got into the Akashic records work, because not everybody does that. I have interviewed people in the past who do that, but I think that's very specific and only certain people are really called to that. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I love that question so much. The Akashic records called to me. I mean, that's how it happened. It was several years ago. I literally I remember I came across this Akashic records tarot deck, because we all love our oracle cards and stuff, right? So I have tons of them. So I ran across this deck of cards and I was really interested in it and fascinated by it because they were so detailed from by the women who created them. And it really started there. And then I was interested in that and I felt the call. And then I came across, a couple of free guided meditations on YouTube, like we all do. And I listened to those, and those were still, like scratching the surface. And I like to go deep. So I had this mentor, this person that I worked with in several of her programs, but she has an Akashic Records school. And so there was a mastery program that she was offering at the time, and I felt guided to explore that program. And it was really when I entered that program, it really, I want to say it like cracked me open. But I went really deep in that program, and that's really what opened me to the records. And I really, when I started tapping into my channeling abilities, and to clarify for that, because there are trans channels and conscious channels, I'm a conscious channel, right? It's literally like turning on a water faucet, you know, and then like information starts coming through. The reason why I'm so passionate about the records, because like so many other people, right? I've studied Reiki, I've done light body work, I've done lots of different things. Everybody has their own Akashic records. The Akashic records are literally this limitless library, the storehouse of information and experiences and energies, for your soul. And I love working with clients in their records because it really provides a much more direct and less subjective path to our ascension, because you're literally able to tap right in. It's like tuning a frequency, right, to a radio station to tap into those records. And then I eventually started teaching them for the same reason. I mean, imagine what our world would be like if everybody had access at that level, at a soul level, right, to consult on all the decisions they want to make and all the things that their heart wants to pursue. And so that's really what happened. And I found that is what often happens, is the Akashic records call to us, like we feel drawn to them. And not everybody does, and that's fine, because everyone's on their own unique path. But I found that that's how it works usually.
You and I know what the Akashic records are, and I have spoken to other Akashic record readers over the past 3.5 years. However, there are always new people listening. Can you give a minute description of the Akashic records in case someone is not aware?
Yeah. So there's the Akasha, which is the limitless field of consciousness. Everything is energy, right? And then there are the Akashic records. Each one of us has our own Akashic records. Animals have their own Akashic records, trees, planets, the earth, have their own Akashic records. They are the library for all of your soul's experiences. So past, present, future incarnations, any of those experiences, any beliefs that you have, anything that you've yet to experience can all be found in the Akashic records. They're literally limitless in terms of the information that they house. What I love about working in the Akashic records is that it's not just about information. It's so much more than that. You can tap into your records and literally shape your future, right? Because so, it'd be another episode to talk about how really time only exists this way on the earth plane, because, our past, present, and future lives are all happening in this now moment. But in your records, just in human speak, let's just say, you can, I love manifesting in there. You can set intentions in there. You can literally rewrite your own records. And from a healing perspective, it's very powerful as well, because again, you're tapped into higher dimensional frequencies at a soul level. And so you're essentially clearing all the clutter, right? To take a direct path to making a quantum leap to your healing. And I like to refer to healing as really remembering, because we're not broken and nothing's missing. We're all whole. It's just a matter of remembering that. So the Akashic records provide a much more direct path, because as humans, we're cute, right? Like we kind of get programmed to think that our journey to remembering has to be complicated. It has to take a long time. But remember that time only exists here. You can literally jump timelines
I mean, I've heard that
working in your
it's hard to understand. Okay, but you brought up something, and I know people will question this because I always find this fascinating as well, or not question it, but have questions around it. Is the future, when you say that we can change and influence the future, I know we have free will, and I also know that we come to the earth plane and inhabit these earth suits so that we can learn and grow. And you are saying that if we are able to read the Akashic records, we can change the future. I mean, it's not written, so the whole thing is just, it is a very fluid concept.
yeah. So can you shape your future outside of the Akashic records? Absolutely. Right. Our future from a manifesting perspective, right, only exists in potential. And if you've ever had a psychic reading with someone and you can ask them, when's this going to happen? And they say December, or, where is my soulmate, or whatever, just common things that people ask. The answer that you get is only as good as what the current energies are reflected as, right? So depending on how you choose to use your free will, that will either continue you on that same path forward based on the answer you got, or it will be different. What I love about doing doing future progressions in the Akashic records is that, again, they're in a much higher frequency. And so you're essentially cutting through any energetic distortions that might exist, right, in the field, and going straight to yourself at a soul level. You can explore where you're currently at based upon the current trajectory of your path, right? And if it's not where you want to be or what you desire, then you can set an intention to change it. And if you're not sure how to change it, you can consult with the record keepers on guidance around exactly what you can do to align to your highest path. That's what I love about working with future progression in the records.
Oh, it is so interesting. And you can, well, it says that you work with people with trauma, right? I mean, you work,
Mhm.
does that, can you go into the records and release past trauma? And is that a healing of sorts for someone?
Yes, absolutely. So similarly, essentially working in the records directly is a much more direct path to healing, because sometimes we exhibit behavioral patterns or hold on to experiences without really knowing how to release the energy, or how to heal, or how to move on. And especially where trauma is concerned, and I speak from personal experience because I experienced a lot of trauma in, especially in my childhood. Um, you may have repressed memories. You may not even know at a conscious level why you're behaving in the way that you are. And so going into your records can provide insights into that in a very direct way, in terms of what the root causes. And then you can release those energies, heal those energies in the records as well. So there is a lot of energetic healing and work that's changing you at a DNA level, at a cellular level.
It's just so interesting. I have had my Akashic records uh, read or done for me. I have a printout of things, of how, what my soul wants or what my soul is intended to do. However, it's just that it's like a sheet of paper. And I imagine when someone works with you, well, explain how someone works with you as an Akashic Records reader, because I can't say.
Yeah, so everybody has their own style and way that they work with people. As you said, there are other Akashic Records readers, teachers. For me, I'm a very clear channel. So a lot of times, if I'm in a private session with someone and we begin the session, as soon as I open the client's records, information will usually start coming through. It's like turning on a faucet. I will always ask the client, I have some information coming forward. Is it okay if I share it with you? I always ask for permission because I want the client to receive the most out of their time with me, because sometimes someone may have a different focus than what the record keepers are bringing forward, right? In the session. So I usually always have information come through. I always advise clients to make sure that they are setting a clear intention on what they want to receive from the experience. I always encourage people to ask focused questions, because again, there's, you've had thousands of lifetimes probably, right? It's just like there's so much information in there. So the clearer you are on your intention, the more information you're going to receive. One thing I do want to say about receiving healing and guidance is that you'll only receive the depth of healing and guidance that you're willing to receive. So what happens sometimes too is that at a conscious level, someone can say, well, yes, absolutely, I don't want to experience this hardship anymore. But their subconscious and their body may be telling a different story. And that's where working in the Akashic Records is also really helpful, because we can immediately get to the root of what is happening, and provided the client is willing and ready to release it, we can release it right then and there. I mean, I had like one client tell me our session was an hour, but after about 25 minutes she says, I think you just changed my whole life in 25 minutes.
Oh yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm sort of beating myself up, going, "Why didn't I get a reading from you before this podcast?" So I really understand how you work. When I have had, uh, it was many years ago, someone gave it to me as a gift, part of a program, and it was fascinating. Really reading it, it's like, oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and it integrated some beliefs in me, but that's gone now. Not gone. I still look at that occasionally. But I think that obviously as we evolve as humans and change our paths, that this could be so helpful as an ongoing program or assistance because we, as you said, we all have different origin stories. You know, I have an origin story of when I became a podcasting host. I have an origin story of this, that, or the other. And I never thought of it quite that way. So every time you open the Akashic records for someone, it's a new origin story almost beginning, is what sort of comes to me. It's us starting over again, maybe.
It can be. Yeah, it can be for some. I mean, as we both said, we have many origin stories, and especially in the time that we're living in now, whether someone is initially feeling that guidance to pivot and to step in the greater work that they're just coming to acceptance with, right, that they're here to do, or there are others who are more established on the path less traveled, and they're now feeling called, right, to step into new levels of expansion. Many of us are on that precipice or, in it right now.
It doesn't seem that way. I had no idea that this conversation would take us clearly to the Akashic records, but I am fascinated by that. And you probably said this, and I probably read it, but I don't remember. Do you teach people how to access the Akashic records as well, or you just act as the channel? Can anyone learn to read the Akashic records?
Yes, I do teach. I do teach other people how to access the Akashic records in the form of a virtual retreat environment. I actually just had one a couple weekends ago. I hold them quarterly. So the next one is at the end of April, and it's called Ascension in the Akasha. So I'm also an ascension guide. So I teach. So in this container, I teach people how to access their records and how to navigate them. Integrated with that, I also speak to, ascension and what it means to step into divine creatorship, which I find enhances others' abilities, right? To fully leverage access to themselves at a soul level like that.
Okay, so explain ascension.
Yeah. So
Anybody out there to understand completely what you're talking about when you say ascension.
yeah. So I believe at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned how Earth is a school and how we're here to learn. And yes, I believe that as well. That is what we're here to do. We have this is part of what I teach in the virtual retreat as well. But so here we reference a lot, our soul purpose, our soulmate, soul this, soul that. And what we're actually talking about is an aspect of our soul. We're not even talking about our whole soul because each of us has an oversoul. And each one of the incarnations that we experience is the soul. I call it like there's the oversoul, like the soul with the big S, and then there's the soul with, the little s, which is helpful for people to remember, right? So when we ask what ascension is, that's really what's happening. You're here as a soul, an aspect of your soul, having an experience in this human body. And every day that you live, you're breathing, all of your being, all of your experiences, not just the big purpose and mission and all of those things, all serve a higher purpose. All of your experiences are interconnected. Nothing's random, and it is all for the higher purpose of learning, of evolution, and of serving the whole, the collective, right? And so everything that you learn here, then when you transition, essentially is combined with your oversoul for the purpose of evolution. And that's what ascension is. It's evolution. If we were fully ascended, we wouldn't be here probably having this conversation now in a human body, right? But ascension is essentially evolution. And very simply put, because some listeners might be now saying, well, okay, how do I, do that, right? How do I be conscious to that? Very simply, ascension is about balance and harmonization. It's about learning to live in love and truth, to come from a space of love and truth. So we have multiple bodies, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, energetic, right? The goal is to bring all of those bodies into balance and harmonization. And that's what the healing journey is. All of that is it's just all the ascension journey. It's just all the journey to remembering who we really are and being conscious to choose our experiences and to evolve.
All right. Promise me right here, right now, that you're going to come back and do another episode because we have a to unravel, uncover, and share.
So to say, right, like the teaching the Akashic records, so the virtual retreat, I share another origin story on the sign up page for that event where it talks about at the time I already had my business and had been on my path for several years, and I started feeling a deeper call to truth. And I talk about my journey of what that looked like, right? When I actually made the declaration, this is the lifetime for me. I'm literally crossing the T's, dotting the I's, tying up all the loose ends. Let's do this. And of course, after I made that declaration to the universe, my life looks like, some could say my life looked like the Tower Tarot card for a while. But I tell you, nothing feels more amazing than coming out on the other side of that, to have that grounded knowing in your body that you're unstoppable. You're like the oak tree in the hurricane. You can confidently navigate any experience in your life.
All right. You're amazing, Jennifer. You are amazing. Share with my listeners your website. Of course, I'll put it in the show notes. And after this, sign me up right now for reading. But
So my website's really easy to remember. It's jenniferspor.com. So for those who are just audibly listening, it's JenniferSpor.com. And if you want, I can provide you, I do have a free gift, which your listeners might enjoy. It's a free meditative journey to activate your highest destiny. So it's perfect for those who are feeling called, right, to step into that next level evolution.
get access through your website, or is there a certain way we can get that?
You can find it on my website. I can also send it to you, and you can include the direct link to it in the show notes.
Wonderful. Thank you. I may have left people with more questions than answers, but because then that will encourage those who are curious about their own healing. And by healing, you may be saying, oh, I don't have anything physically wrong with me. That's not healing. Healing is, yes, that, but it's also healing our soul, healing our past traumas, healing whatever is of disservice to us at this time and what perhaps is holding us back from the true expression of ourselves. And that's how I look at healing, because I think
absolutely, we're eternal students, right? And I sense that a lot of leaders are listening to your podcast as well. And one of the greatest qualities of an authentic leader is humility, right? Knowing
that we don't know.
that we don't know.
Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing this information, not only in the Akashic records, where when you were speaking about that, I was like, that's where we can find our divine spark. If it has gone, we can reignite our spark by going back to the Akashic records if we are truly, truly deep and unable to access that on our own. And I love that. I think that it's something so valuable and will help us with our own self-worth, which is another big thing of mine.
Yes. Our support is vast. I mean, imagine, I like to say, use the analogy of imagine a football stadium, the largest football stadium, and every seat is filled. Those are all of your ancestors, loved ones, guides, angels. That is the kind of support that each and every one of us has.
I'm going to end there. It's perfect. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Listeners, I hope you are leaving with more questions because I really want you to explore more about how you can access your inner light. And that's what these wonderful guests like Jennifer are bringing to you, information to help you do that. I am so appreciative of Jennifer Spor and her time today. And if you are at all interested, I do hope that you will check her out, listen to her podcast, and perhaps explore learning how you too can access the Akashic records on your own or through a channel such as Jennifer. So I thank you for tuning in each and every week to ignite your spark. So go out there and heal yourself, people, and shine that light because the world needs your light. See you next time.